Hello everyone, welcome back. This is Aluminum Tarot. We're just going to have a quick fireside chat. No tarot cards in hand or anything like that. But I just wanted to kind of take this time to go over a few notes I had been scribbling down and talk about a few of the concepts that I had been wrestling with over the last few days. I like to kind of switch it up between, speaking about the tarot and doing readings, and additionally, speaking about other concepts that I find that are quite synonymous with Jungian psychology, working with archetypes of sorts. And additionally, we can now do this on a much better microphone. Say hello to Blue Nessie. So, as always, before we get started, if you like what you see here on this channel, please be sure to give a like, share, subscribe, ding the notification bell so that you don't miss any updates from future postings. And also, feel free to drop me a coffee if you want to support the channel monetarily. And please be aware of scammers. That's really all I ask about that, because I don't give out personal readings at the moment. I just really want to focus on building the content of the channel and then moving forward after that. If there is demand for tarot readings on a personal level or a business level, I'll probably get onto that a bit later on, as the channel develops. Without further ado, what we'll talk a little bit about is kind of a segue from what we were speaking about last time, which was, we talked a little bit about Black Moon Lilith and the ability to kind of be a more authentic person. And what this does, this is a transmutation process where we go from working with, the experiences and the energies that take place with Black Moon Lilith throughout life. Those things deal with alienation. They deal also with trauma, isolation, unequal displays of power, all sorts of things like that. Working with that to integrate the shadow into the self and become, what they call an individuated spirit under Jungian concepts. So what we'll talk a little bit about now, I was kind of looking over some of the, aspects of Chiron. Now, in mythology, in Greek mythology, if I'm not mistaken, Chiron was basically a centaur, highly trained in martial arts, healing, medicines, different kinds of spiritual sources or concepts. And it had a lot of mastery of different things, but unfortunately, it injured itself after being hit with a poison arrow, which it could not heal. And so Chiron carried around this pain throughout its entire life and eventually succumbed to it. But then later became granted status as a constellation, and if I'm not mistaken, I'll always keep saying that concept. I'll always keep saying that. I think it was Alpha Centauri, which becomes kind of like the embodiment of Chiron in the constellations. But don't quote me on that. I will look into that a bit later on. What we see with Chiron, it is a centaur represented by half man, half horse. And there are certain Sagittarian concepts in that which, emulate in Chiron as we look at it in our own personal placements in our astrological charts. So what we see here is we have half man, half horse. And what this insinuates is that we are overcoming the animal nature of ourselves, the desire to be unbridled, and free, and additionally, allowing our rational and our human nature to kind of supersede that. But additionally, it embodies a bit of those Sagittarian concepts of free will, roaming, being of high-minded nature, studying more spiritual concepts, and the quest, the desire to seek out the truth through our first taste of spirituality that comes after the Tower moment from Scorpio. So one of the things that we notice is that this Chiron is a very important placement in your own particular charts. So you can find that out using any of the websites like Chani, or you can look at astro.com, which is my personal favorite. And then you can find out where it's placed and where it's aspected to other planets or placements. That said, I look at mine as Chiron in the 6th house, which is where it is, and it's actually conjunct the sun. And this can be a very difficult placement for many people considering that, when it's placed next to the sun, it can give a lot of pain to the self-expression that we have, throughout our lives. So for some people, depending on how poorly or how well aspect it is, it can be kind of like a Chester Bennington expression, where people, they are performers, they use their pain and channel it through their song or their music or their plays or their books or the things that they create. So the sun is a creative force. And then we see when it's close to Chiron in such a nature, we find that is actually allowing us to create through the pain that we have felt in the past experiences of our life, and even sometimes past lifetimes. And that can lead on to discussions about karma and things of that nature, which we will touch on a completely different time. But with Chiron being conjunct Sun, and in the 6th house, in my particular chart, what it does is it forces me to learn how to use pain or difficult experiences and channel them into my personal work. It could actually be related to work as well, where you feel kind of ostracized and alienated at work due to your nature being completely different. And as I explained before, Black Moon Lilith is 0 degrees my ascendant, which means that there's a strong drive for freedom and rebellion. And this is something that I've had to come to terms with. But additionally, it's something that I kind of revel in a way which allows me to, be more authentic, come up with, innovative solutions, things like that, which allow me to stand apart from other people when it comes to the work that I give. So in essence, when we talk about this kind of work, it is a kind of creative expression which is drawing from the experiences of the past, which are predicated on, not the traumatic experiences, yes, places where we feel that we have to work on to heal and to transmutate difficult energies and so on. So we talk a little bit about that because we oftentimes see this in kind of like this sad clown paradox. This was something that was invented a little bit, I think it was in the 1980s, but this has gone through even the 19th century, where we start looking at plays like Pagliacci, which was an Italian opera. And for those who, are fans of opera, I do actually enjoy opera quite a bit, being in the UK and, places in the US where it was available to me at the time when studying Shakespeare. We got a chance to see quite a few plays as well. But as far as operas are concerned, we see like a contradiction between comedy, performance, and trauma and disorders. So we look at people who are comedians, people who are performers, people who are kind of like movers and shakers in the business world, even in that particular sense. A lot of times what they'll do is they'll transform the painful experiences from the past, and they will use that as their drive to create something impressive. And that in turn creates the alchemic process of turning lead into gold. And this is something I stress quite a bit in the kintsugi medicine that I talk about, which kintsugi is about piecing things back together using filaments or molten gold to make these things, much more valuable, much more light and free. And so it's kind of like a shattering of something, bringing it back together with wisdom and illumination and light, which of course is the reason why I named the channel as such. And this is kind of the process that goes through, this Chiron concept that I'm talking about here. So just as a brief kind of historical throwback to Pagliacci, it was kind of an Italian opera which has a lot of elements of tragedy towards the end of it. I won't spoil it for you because I would like for you to see it for yourself, but in essence, the pain that the main character feels is brought about by the betrayals around him. And in essence, what he has to do is he pieces that together, and that actually becomes front and center of the theme of the opera that takes place. And so in essence, we are living on a stage, which is the world, the universe, whatever you want to call it. And what we're trying to do is we're finding our role in, our existence, our daily existence in life. And so oftentimes when we do have these different experiences, or if we do have difficult placements or aspects in, the astrological chart, we are trying our best to find how to piece those things together and transmute those so that our role in society or our role in the universe becomes more prominent. Because what happens if we fail to transmute that energy in a healthy or helpful way, what it does is actually emanates as being a criminal, or it can result in kind of like mood disorders, things of that nature, anything that would show like a negative or an antisocial expression of that pain. And then if you carry that around, that can actually lead to the Chironic concept of your downfall, because the pain is so great. Some people choose, certain things I can't really say on YouTube, but we can say the word unalive. Other people may choose to use it as, rage, or things that land them in jail or prison, or they can just carry around a general malaise throughout their life in which it's very difficult for them to parse, their pain from their true competencies and their true capabilities, their potential to do great things and to make their mark on the world. So, when I talk about Jungian concepts, one of the things that is important about the transformative process in making all of this happen is kind of a quote that I like to take from Carl Jung, and I'm going to loosely quote it here, is where he talks about if you fail to make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And in essence, in any play, you do have a director, you have producers and things of that nature. And what you don't want to do is to direct your life in a fatalistic way by not processing those unconscious drives and motivations predicated by fear, loss, trauma, any kind of painful situations you've had to go through. And as we see in Pagliacci, it's one of those expressions of what happens when things go wrong in the transformative process, and our way of responding to those difficulties, those traumas, and additionally, those problems within our life or the scenarios that come up in which we have a choice. We can either direct our energy towards overcoming those things, or we can direct it towards, the perceived external source of that pain, and that can be good or bad. Usually it ends up becoming bad. And oftentimes we see the people who have the choice and they choose to go down the shadow route, which that can represent itself in the Joker. You have certain people like John Wayne Gacy in history, and these are very extreme examples that I hope no one goes down that route. But even to an even more extreme, you have on an archetypal way of looking at things, you have It from Stephen King's book, and the films that followed it, where it is using an external kind of performative character, which is Pennywise the dancing clown, and then he actually takes that as a way of luring people into its actual dark nature, which is the dead lights, and its true form, which is, I won't spoil that for anyone who has not seen the movie, but you get the picture. So when we have this clown persona, it is about the performance in the stage in which we all find ourselves. We are all kind of clowns in many ways. We find our way of expressing ourselves, making ourselves up, dolling ourselves up, so that way we have a persona to show the external world. But underneath that external, the visage that we have, lies all of the issues that we are not facing or that we are not even aware of. So this is almost like the conscious expression of ourselves, and then the unconscious expression within that we ourselves have to dredge through and to look into. And so that's why, doing this kind of individuation process is going to be extremely important for people to find out what it is exactly is buried underneath all of the rubble from the destruction of many tower moments in our personal lives So that way we can take that energy and we can rebuild the tower with a firmer foundation, and then additionally use it to create something special in which everyone can be a part of, or at least the people who are important. And so I guess with this ramble, as I've expressed before, I have Sagittarian ascendant, Black Moon Lilith at 0 degrees, the ascendant as well, Uranus and Neptune all in the first house. So this puts a lot of onus on me to channel a lot of that Chiron in the 6th, to take whatever experiences from the first house and move into the energy of the 6th house, which is, the first house is your main expression. It's your way of expressing yourself and your external appearance to the world. And then after that, the 6th house is your service. Sun, my sun, is in the 6th house. You can find your sun and its placement in whatever part of your chart it is, using astro.com and other websites. But it's important to know where these placements are, so that way you have a way, kind of a blueprint or a map, to work through those energies and to kind of face whatever it is. So that way, when you do channel this energy externally, it's more of a work of art rather than a tragedy waiting to unfold. And so I'll leave it pretty much at that. I hope this has been kind of helpful. I hope that you've gained something from it. Hopefully the ramblings have made sense, but I just kind of want to explore some of these concepts in between some of the astrological and tarot readings, so that way we can kind of explore this on a more psychological level, and always find a way to healthily express, to discover and explore these unconscious issues that have been taking place or that you have accumulated over the years. So that way we can release that lead and become lighter individuals as self, and individuate ourselves into something where everyone can benefit, including, most importantly, yourself. So thanks again. This has been Aluminum Tarot. If you like what you see here, please be sure to give a like, share, subscribe, thumbs up. Leave a comment below also how this emanates in your specific life. How have you actually experienced this trauma? You don't have to give a lot of details, but you can give the general understanding of it. And then how have you used that to become a performer, where you have channeled that energy into something creative, using your sun, using your Chiron, and additionally your ascendant. I'd like to hear some of those stories, because hopefully this can be of some use to those people who may need it. Thanks again. Until next time, love and light, and I'll see you next reading. Okay, bye now.